oxygen sensor on 300 SE. One of our Patreon subscribers, George, who lives in Sacramento, has a 300 SE W126, and if I remember right, I think it's an 89, right, George? So George is having a very interesting fuel issue after replacing the EHA and doing, the standard tune-up stuff, cap, wires, rotor, spark plugs. His car would stumble occasionally, especially under load going up a hill. So this one had me a little bit stumped. I assumed that the issue is a lean fuel mixture, and I had given him all this advice about how to adjust EHA pressures and what testing parameters to cover. But one thing that we had forgotten to discuss were on-off ratios. So at some point I need to do a video about on-off ratios. The on-off ratio is really used to discuss how to look at your Mercedes and see how the O2 sensor is working and some of the related components. And the on-off ratio is actually just a voltage percentage of the car's duty cycle going to its oxygen sensor and its electrohydraulic actuator. So the way these things work is that you have voltage on, voltage off, voltage on, voltage off. And the ratio of voltage on, voltage off should be about 50%. But if a problem comes up, it can be like 70-30 or 0-100 if the car is trying to correct a problem with the oxygen sensor or a mixture issue or something like that. So the oxygen sensor is really at the heart of the KE Jetronic system, taking the measurements, and on the other hand, the item that's affected by those measurements is the electrohydraulic actuator, and in between is the KE control unit. So it turned out that George's car had a bad oxygen sensor. Now, I do replace oxygen sensors as a matter of procedure because I know after so many years they just get crappy. The thing that really blew me out of the water about George's car was the fact that the oxygen sensor had this ridiculous effect on the car's performance. It was like when the oxygen sensor was replaced, everything went back to normal. Now, why is this significant? Well, a lot of the time when you change an oxygen sensor, you might see the effects in long-term gas mileage. You might see the effects in how, I guess you could say, how efficiently the car uses its fuel, but rarely does it seem to produce a noticeable throttle effect. And in this case, it did. So in the past, every single oxygen sensor we replaced, we did out of necessity and mileage. But this one actually had a real acute flaw that was causing the car to have a lean mixture. So what's the moral of the story? Well, if you have some funny running issues and you have a Mercedes with 100,000 miles or more on it, change your oxygen sensor because it actually is having a bigger effect on the KE system than even I thought. And KE is actually more mechanical than it is electronic, which is why it was so confusing. So anyway, George, thanks for sharing this bit of information with us. If you have a car with a 103 or a 104 engine especially, again, take a look at your oxygen sensor. And if you have anything to contribute to this discussion, feel free to post your comments below. Also, if you have a question about your oxygen sensor or your KE Jetronic system, then post your comments below. I don't particularly care which version it is. So even if you have a 190E 2.3 or a 560 SEL, all these things fit in the same category. So if you have one of those cars, post your questions as well. And in the meantime, like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy driving your Mercedes Benz. And for rapid and ongoing assistance with your Mercedes problems, support us on Patreon, and we'll support you in the resolution of those issues. So in the meantime, I look forward to hearing from all of you, and enjoy driving your Mercedes Benz.